Ah, yes, Ubisoft. You either love them or hate them. I'll give them some credit. In recent years, it seems like they've listened to the majority of the criticism and leaned towards the older style of gameplay they used to have. Assassin's Creed Shadows just released, and I have yet to see a bad review on it. Hell, it even adds a parkour building feature for no reason at all. I love when games just add in pointless side content for the sake of the player not getting bored. Hell, Ubisoft has even made some of my favorite games of all time, but it seems as though every time they push out a new game, they get less and less creative for the sake of cash grabbing. I mean, yeah, we have Sam Fisher as a character in Siege, but why haven't we had a new Splinter Cell game in 12 years? Blacklist was one of the most fun games I've ever played. We're going to rewind a bit here. I'm not going to talk about every consecutive Ubisoft game being pushed out there, but there are a few I'd like to go over. Those include Assassin's Creed 1-4, Assassin's Creed Bloodlines, Driver San Francisco, Zombie U and its port, the Watch Dogs trilogy, and Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. I'm not even going to try to mention the Rayman games despite him being the actual mascot of their company, because clearly putting Rayman in a cage and throwing Baby Shark onto Just Dance was more of a priority for Ubisoft.
What you fucking deserve!
Hey Jason, you miss me?
You might be scratching your head and asking yourself, what about Far Cry? Well, put it simply, Ubisoft hasn't completely destroyed Far Cry yet. And seeing as how they've had a slight redemption with some of their recent games, I think Far Cry 7 or whatever is next for that franchise will actually prove to be pretty decent. So put it simply, I actually like Far Cry, and I have a separate video planned for an actual in-depth review of the games in the franchise. I also forgot to mention it, but I'll touch basis on the crew. Anyways, let's take a dive into Ubisoft's good era. As you can see by my low-quality gameplay of the first Assassin's Creed game, it's not perfect. This game was a rough beginning for the franchise that even die-hard Assassin's Creed fans tend to not like. Sure, it embodies what Assassin's Creed is in a way, but it's also evident that they were trying something new when this game first came out. It wasn't until Assassin's Creed 2 came out that they truly found identity in the series. In the first game, there's not necessarily a mission structure. You just go from town to town, climb structures and towers again and again, gather intel on your targets, and ultimately repeat the process. Each time you're wandering around gathering intel is no different from the last, which is why I personally dropped the game about halfway through. The story certainly wasn't interesting enough to keep me invested, and I already went over the gameplay. Not much to say there. It was all just rinse and repeat until you fight your own mentor, Al-Mualim, and Altair is a cool assassin and all, but he's kind of terribly written. You mean to tell me he just starts out as a total dickhead of a character who betrays his creed and has to kill a few guys as a redemption mission? I gotta admit, I did think the detail about Altair having a sync bar instead of a health bar was pretty cool. Basically, to sum things up, if you've never played Assassin's Creed, the assassin you play as is pretty much a game within a game. It's called the Animus, and while you're in the Animus, you're synced to it. You can lose synchronization only through story progression, but the game adds details to make it look like you're glitching out and whatnot. I know, confusing. It's an understatement, but that's the best I can do at describing it. Back on track, I can't get over the fact that the graphics aren't the greatest. Sure, it's a 360 era game, but so is GTA 5. And that game's graphics aren't the best either, but they certainly hold up to today's standards. Maybe starting out with killing old men in temples wasn't such a great path for Ubisoft to take with this one.
Then why did you kill the old man inside the temple?
Alright, enough about Altair. For now. Let's move on to what gave this franchise the name that it has today. Now, back in the day, people played the first Assassin's Creed and saw that this idea had major potential. In theory, playing as a badass assassin in an open world game and fighting against historical figures is a great concept. So thankfully, Ubisoft didn't give up on it and instead released one of the greatest games to date. Just Dance. Assassin's Creed 2. It wasn't a perfect game due to hardware limitations and whatnot, but damn, this game was fun. And they took the good mechanics of the first game and improved on them in every way possible. Like the parkour, that was fun as hell, so they improved on it and made it more fluent. And the mission structure wasn't simply completing the same 5 tasks over and over until you reach your target. But as fun as this game's gameplay was, that's not really the reason people still enjoy it to this day. The reason Assassin's Creed 2 is still considered one of the best in the franchise is because of Ezio's sexy muscles. Sorry, I meant the story. Yeah, that's the one.
It is a good life we lead, brother.
The best. May it never change.
And may it never change us.
Yeah, Ezio starts off as a rich kid in Italy with no worries in the world, then his fucking family gets executed in front of him, and he's forced to basically become Italian Batman. Throughout this journey, you get to see his triumphs, his losses, his sexy muscles. I mean, fuck. His character development, that's what I meant. You also get to interact with real-life historical figures and events this time around, something now known as a staple of the franchise. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci is your fucking gadget guy. And since Assassin's Creed 2 was so good, Ubisoft took the liberty of making a whole 2 more games following up Ezio's character, neither of which was a bad game. Not to mention in Assassin's Creed Revelations, we got to see Ezio cross paths with the old man, temple-killing son of a bitch himself, Altair. I won't be going over those 2 games since I've already got some other games to roast. I mean, review. That's what I meant. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with any of these games.
I watch them fight and die in the name of freedom. They speak of liberty and justice, but for who?
Not much to say about this one. They kept the same formula as Assassin's Creed 2 and its sequels, but set into the American Revolution. You get to interact with characters like George Washington, Ben Franklin. You even get to go on the Midnight Ride with Paul Revere himself. That's now 3 consecutive hits in a row from this franchise. How could things go wrong from here? Put it simply, they didn't, right away. Black Flag was the follow-up to Assassin's Creed 3. They also dropped a title for the PSP called Assassin's Creed Bloodlines that featured everyone's favorite old man temple killer, Altair. Not only that, but we also got a new game for the PS Vita that in itself was a sequel to Assassin's Creed 3. Mind you, every Assassin's Creed game up to this point gave up about 15 hours plus of great content, and even these handheld titles gave you like 10 hours minimum. Ubisoft was giving the fans grade A content for the sake of their love of the games. Not for money, but for their fans' passion of the franchise. We'll talk a little more about Black Flag later, but for now, let's move on to some different Ubisoft content. Instead, we're going to talk about the bad Ubisoft era. What led into it? What led into the mess that they are now? We'll start by talking about this game that you may or may not have heard of because of this guy's video. It's called Driver San Francisco. In short, Driver San Francisco is a part of the Driver franchise, a series of racing games. However, this game brought something totally new to the table. San Francisco. Okay, yeah, we all love Full House, but unfortunately, John Stamos doesn't make an appearance in Driver San Francisco. No, this is a game that's basically the capture mechanism in Super Mario Odyssey, but with fucking cars. And the game's explanation for this is that your character is in a coma, and aware that he's in a coma. Nick's video can definitely go more in depth than I can, and you can also get to watch him practically bring this game back to the market with a fucking Subway gift card, so go check it out when given the chance. But it's a great game concept. Now, yeah, this is a great game, but that's not where it comes into play with Ubisoft's terrible company decisions. The game on its own isn't perfect and admittedly had its flaws, but it was by no means a bad game. So why did Ubisoft go out of their way to delist the game after only 5 years of service? Strange. Not strange, because it's something we've never seen before. But strange because the devs behind the game put 5 years of their own lives into making it. That's 5 years of work, leaving your ma and pa on a daily basis to go and craft your masterpiece known as Driver San Francisco. So Ubisoft ultimately fucks over their own company by throwing all their work down the drain and the consumers who can no longer buy the game by legal means. But surely this is a mistake, right? It won't happen again, will it? Well, fuck. Okay, Ubisoft, what's up with this? The Crew was a greatly received game. You could explore the whole fucking United States in racing game form now. Sounds like an awesome idea, and it was. But they didn't just delist The Crew, they made it completely inaccessible. You can now no longer play the game, even if you went out of your way to buy a digital or physical copy of it. I mean, shit, with Driver San Francisco, if you buy a used copy, you can pop it in the old Xbox 360 and it'll run just fine. But Ubisoft basically took The Crew and said fuck you to anyone who enjoyed it or spent even a penny on it. Oh, but it gets even better than that. The Ubisoft subscription director didn't even know that was an official company title name. Well, he outright made a statement saying that consumers should get used to not owning their games. This sparks the whole debate about how if buying the game isn't owning the game, then pirating the game isn't stealing the game, is it? Don't mind my entire Assassin's Creed 1 Let's Play where I quite literally pirated the whole game. Hey, speaking of pirates...
I heard the old man say, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Tomorrow ye will get your fate, and it's time for us to leave her.
Alright, back to the only Ubisoft franchise that anyone gives a shit about other than Far Cry. Assassin's Creed was still looking good by 2013. I mean, let's do the math real quick. Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, that's the one where you get a gang. Assassin's Creed Revelations, the one where you meet Altair, aka the old man temple killer himself. Assassin's Creed Bloodlines on the PSP. Assassin's Creed 3, and Assassin's Creed Liberation. That's 6 consecutive good games in the Assassin's Creed franchise. I mean, shit, if Smosh was liking it by this point, you know it's good.
What you thinking that bitch? Takes my tomahawk chop. How many fools can I kill today? Too many to count, don't get in my way.
Okay, so Ubisoft sees that people love playing as these assassins throughout different historical eras. Then they say, okay, what if we gave them full-on open worlds? Like, open worlds with seas and cities. And hear me out. What if we make the protagonist the ancestor of the last guy we had as a protagonist? But wait. What if they're all peg-legged and say, "Yar, matey," while singing sea shanties and harpooning sharks? Isn't this an Assassin's game? No, this is about pirates, you dumb fuck. Works for me. Yeah, to follow up Assassin's Creed 3, Ubisoft came out with their own little masterpiece. Let me just define masterpiece for you in case you were unclear on the actual definition. A work of outstanding artistry, skill, or workmanship, often considered the greatest work of a person's career. So, we look at Nintendo. They have Ocarina of Time, arguably their best game made. Look at Rocksteady. Arkham Knight, again, arguably their best game made. Rockstar with Red Dead 2. Capcom with Resident Evil 4. Yeah, well, Ubisoft's is probably Black Flag. This is the Assassin's Creed game that even not Assassin's Creed fans like. The game dropped and became an instant classic. It's no longer just assassinating people in the shadows. You're now sailing the 7 seas as a fucking pirate, sinking ships and drowning people in shark-infested waters, all while keeping the soul gameplay there. There's still parkour, assassinations, and more importantly, a masterfully crafted and emotionally beautiful storyline that dives into the morality of our main cast.
In a world without gold, we might have been heroes!
Honestly, I even find myself singing along to the sea shanties whenever I sail on the ship. Now, the story is its own thing entirely. We start out as Edward Kenway, and he could give two shits about the Brotherhood, the Creed, or any of that fight for freedom BS, but as we go on, we see him change from someone who's in it for the gold to someone who's in it for a greater cause, and ultimately his character arc develops to where it's a metaphor about how even in a world full of greed and betrayal, the most selfish man out there can find a cause for good and worth fighting for. And most open world games with an ocean of any sorts have next to no life in that said ocean, but in Black Flag, the world feels alive. You can hunt animals, fight other ships, and acknowledge the amazing graphics and textures that, mind you, are from 2013. Now, all due fairness, the whole fighting other ships thing was in Assassin's Creed 3 as well, but that game was primarily focused on hand-to-hand combat, and the sea combat felt really rough. It was more like a one-time gimmick for the one or two missions that it was actually utilized in. Of course, there were underwater sections in Assassin's Creed Black Flag as well, which, like any other game, featured the protagonist going through hell. Anyways, enough about Black Flag. The problem is, Ubisoft saw that people liked Black Flag, and they took all the wrong ideas from it. Enter Assassin's Creed Unity. Still a decent game, but they decided to rush it. The concept was great. Multiplayer co-op Assassin's Creed. What could go wrong? Well, a lot. It was hated on for practically being released unfinished. Of course, Ubisoft patched it up, no biggie, but the problem was that was almost unheard of back then. Nowadays, you see companies do it all the time. Rather than polishing their game to completion, they wait until everyone buys it to slap some updates on it, like with Halo Infinite, or dare I say Cyberpunk. Assassin's Creed Unity is remembered as being a massive piece of shit for practically creating that trend. The multiplayer is also next to unplayable. The parkour just seems clunky and slow, making the gameplay ass overall. And just to finish things up with Assassin's Creed, not much needs to be said after Unity happened. Ubisoft thought they knew what fans wanted after years of them begging for an Assassin's Creed Egypt game. With the success of Black Flag, they basically just decided to throw an even bigger map into Assassin's Creed Origins. But unlike Black Flag, this game's world felt like every other game's world. What differentiated Origins from The Witcher 3 or the likes of Skyrim, and not to mention they went totally out of line with the Julius Caesar assassination. It was one of the most historically inaccurate assassinations in the series to date, and it felt like it was thrown together just to say they had that one Shakespeare book you read in class in the game. Origins isn't just responsible for being a terrible game. It's responsible for being the icing on the cake to what killed Assassin's Creed. And it wasn't some temple murdering guy in a cloak. No. Assassin's Creed Origins wasn't Assassin's Creed. They simply changed the gameplay completely. Why am I riding a fucking camel in ancient Egypt and leveling up like I'm in an RPG? Oh wait, because they changed it to an RPG. Now, if open world RPG games are your thing, then cool. But personally, I prefer quality over quantity. I'd rather play the 15-hour story of Assassin's Creed 2 and take my time enjoying every minute of it than play the 30 hours of content in Origins that barely focuses on the story at all and is mostly spent leveling up your character to progress. Now, people did like one thing about this game, and that was Bayek. Bayek became so many people's immediate favorite assassin. So many figured Ubisoft would learn and improve next time around after the terrible mess that was Assassin's Creed Origins. Nope. Assassin's Creed Odyssey comes around, and They took all the bad things from Origins and made them worse. Made the map bigger, so now you have to spend more time leveling up, and took out any and all assassin elements from the game. No worries though, if you didn't want to spend 40 hours leveling up, instead, just spend some money on a fucking single player game to make the process go by quicker. Origins was acceptable for some, but Odyssey, it downright split the fan base in half. And it's a shame too, because I myself enjoyed Odyssey. But why, after waiting for a new Assassin's Creed game, were we given a game about being a fucking Spartan? Not just the idea of me being a Spartan, but I'm now fighting minotaurs and mythical creatures. What happened to assassinating historical figures? It was obvious now. People had no hope in Ubisoft to bring Assassin's Creed back to its roots. So then Valhalla came out and it was exactly what you'd expect. Only difference now is, instead of the gameplay and controls being the only tolerable thing in the game, it was now shit and unplayable. I myself liked Origins and Odyssey whenever you use that famous internet argument of they're good games, just not good Assassin's Creed games, but Valhalla wasn't just bad in the same aspects as the previous two covered titles. It's the worst thing a game can be. Boring. Because of this, it summarizes a game that just about no one likes. You can check out So Says Jay's video on that topic for a more in-depth analysis. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is just one of the biggest pieces of crap I've seen thrown into the modern gaming world. Now, thankfully Ubisoft, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, is taking some advice lately and took the series back to its roots with Assassin's Creed Mirage and Shadows. I've played neither of which, but I've heard they're decent games for fans of the actual good titles. That being said, let's move on to Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs 1 was released the same year as Assassin's Creed Unity was, so you can bet on how that went. People saw the trailer at E3 for this game, and critics tore that whole convention to pieces and got that canceled. But anyways, the Watch Dogs trailer. People were amazed back in 2012. The graphics looked more than promising. It looked like a game to actually look forward to. You know, people were excited about the PS4 coming out and the Xbox One coming out and whatnot. And Watch Dogs looked like a reason to go buy the PS4 and Xbox One. It looked like a reason for these new consoles to even come out in the first place. And a lot of people did go buy these new consoles to play Watch Dogs. Well, they were kind of disappointed whenever they wasted their money. Watch Dogs was advertised as like a cyberpunk-ass game with stunning visuals and dynamic hacking mechanics to keep the player engaged. It looked like the future of open-world gaming. Hell, it looked like the next big gaming franchise, but like Assassin's Creed Unity, it was terrible at launch. The graphics weren't nearly what the trailer showed them off to be. The lighting, the detailed rain effects, they were nothing like the trailer. It was hardly even the same game. It didn't have the same cinematic atmosphere as the trailer did. Outcry and backlash was everywhere. It wasn't just that the graphics were bad, it was the Ubisoft line. They sold people on something that didn't even exist. Even with the bad graphics, the game wasn't all too great. Over time, it became decent enough to be playable, but at launch, hell no. The driving was terrible. The gunplay was terrible. I think the only thing good about it was Aiden Pierce and how fucking cool he is. And to think they marketed this as some sort of GTA competitor, I mean, I'll give the multiplayer some credit. It didn't work too bad, but it wasn't all that fun. Watch Dogs was simply put a letdown, and many people didn't forgive Ubisoft for that. It was also the same year as Assassin's Creed Unity, so people just sort of lost hope in the company after these two games released in 1 year. The game's sequel improved on some gameplay mechanics, but it's not like it was anything revolutionary. Watch Dogs 2 is a good game according to critics and all, but according to me, don't spend any more than $15 on it when you catch it on sale. Now what I will say is, after Watch Dogs 2, the series had potential. But Ubisoft put that to waste by pushing out the piece of shit that is Watch Dogs Legion. Watch Dogs Legion watered down all of the gaming mechanics and even managed to fuck up the characters. The characters were the fun in Watch Dogs 2. And even Watch Dogs 1 for that matter. Now, that's all thrown away for some fucking plays anyone gimmick. What started as a promising new IP eventually just became another victim to Ubisoft running their games into the ground with microtransactions and gimmicks. It was obvious Ubisoft forgot about this franchise just as much as we did after the failure of Watch Dogs Legion, and maybe that's for the best. But believe it or not, Watch Dogs wasn't the only new IP that Ubisoft completely wasted during this era. Let's talk about Zombie U, a Wii U launch title meant to showcase the features of the Wii U gamepad. Dare I say, this was a good game, a great game even. It was a genuinely intense survival horror game that not many got to play because it was exclusive to one of the worst consoles of all time. Well, it was. Anyways, using the gamepad to manage your items while also having to stare at the TV screen and watch out for zombie attacks, fuck yeah. They added a whole new sense of tension to survival horror. And usually you'll pick up a launch title only because there's nothing else better to play. But with Zombie U, you actually get some decent fun out of this. Now, with Zombie U, I want you to go ahead and imagine you were playing Resident Evil. I don't know. We'll say on your PS5, right? And you have to manage 2 screens at once. I'm not talking like the item management, inventory, all that. I'm talking you have to completely manage a whole separate screen. Like that's basically what Zombie U was in terms of gameplay. Well, it worked. It was an awesome mechanic because it came out on the Wii U. And it was built for that mechanic on there. And then Ubisoft, they see that the reviews for the game are good, but the sales aren't because, well, Wii U. And nobody fucking bought that thing, so what does Ubisoft do? They throw it onto Xbox and PS4. Oh, my lord. It was fucking terrible. It removed all of the fun from the game. Like it didn't play badly or anything, but it was just a basic fucking zombie game now. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to play that. I mean, this was probably the best Wii U exclusive, other than like Breath of the Wild, if you count that as an exclusive. But, man, it's ridiculous. Alright. I know this video is long and probably even rushed towards the end and all, but hopefully y'all enjoyed nonetheless. Mind you, if this didn't feel like my other 2 review videos, it's because it's not like those. This is an overview as to why Ubisoft is a terrible company. This isn't meant to be an Assassin's Creed Unity review or a fucking, I don't know, Watch Dogs Legion review. This isn't what that video is, but, just let me know if you want me to cover those games in the future. I will definitely go ahead and do that. Content is content after all. But as for Ubisoft, only time will tell if they learn from their mistakes or not. I think me and a lot of others are waiting on Far Cry 7 to make or break that decision. But if you're still holding out hope for them and pouring your money into their microtransactions and all that, good luck. You're braver than I am. Anyways, I'm about 200 hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so let me continue doing that, I guess. Peace out, YouTube.